Regulations on short-term vacation rentals are put on hold today as a referendum repealing them qualifies for the ballot.
It was chaos, smoke, just madness. It was terrifying to see everything. A lot of people laying on the ground.
It was 40 years ago, but people who were there say they'll never forget the plane crash that took the lives of 144 people in North Park.
We're here in Balboa Park for opening night of the GI Film Festival. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The man once known as America's Dad was led away in handcuffs today. The judge sentencing Bill Cosby to 3 to 10 years in state prison for drugging and sexually assaulting a woman in his home. The judge also declared him a sexually violent predator, which means neighbors and schools will be notified about his whereabouts. The victim's attorney and Bill Cosby's spokesman made statements following the sentencing.
We're glad the judgment day has finally come for Mr. Cosby. Mr. Cosby has shown no remorse, and there has been no justice for many of the accusers who were barred from a court by the arbitrary time limits imposed by the statute of limitations.
Mr. Cosby's doing great, and Mr. Cosby knows that God is watching over him. He knows that these are lies. They persecuted Jesus, and look what happened. Not saying Mr. Cosby is Jesus, but we know what this country has done to black men for centuries.
The judge in the case has denied a request from Cosby's lawyers that he remain free on bail while he appeals the conviction. The 81-year-old will not be eligible for parole for 3 years. Voters will have a say in whether San Diego should regulate short-term home rentals. The county registrar of voters confirmed today there are enough valid signatures to put a referendum on the ballot. The city must now decide if the vote would happen in 2020 or an earlier special election. Until then, regulations passed this summer will be placed on hold. They were scheduled to take effect next year. The city of San Diego says it's moving forward on a deal to acquire land for a convention center expansion. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says this comes after the agreement nearly fell apart and could have cost the city millions.
The deal centers around a piece of land controlled by Fifth Avenue Landing.
We can't afford to not try and get this project done.
In June, the city of San Diego agreed to put a $5 million down payment on that leasehold, contingent on a citizens' initiative passing this year.
Good morning, and once again, thank you for being here.
That initiative, Yes for a Better San Diego, would expand the convention center and provide money to address homelessness and road repairs. But it didn't have enough signatures to automatically qualify for this year's ballot. That triggered a lengthy review, which meant it was not going to voters in November. So at the last minute, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer brought a similar ballot proposal to council, but it also failed to gain approval.
That concludes our meeting.
So with nothing going to voters this year, there was a question. Is the city on the hook for that $5 million down payment? It appeared so, but all parties then agreed to push deadlines back to September to see if the original Citizens Initiative would end up qualifying for a ballot. It recently did, and the deal that was once in jeopardy is now back on. A spokesman from San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says all parties are moving forward with executing the agreement and acknowledged the requirements related to the ballot qualification have been met. The deal says the Port of San Diego will make the down payment on behalf of the city. A statement from the port says next month its Board of Commissioners will take action to acknowledge requirements related to the purchase and sale agreement have been met. The deadline to make the $5 million down payment was supposed to be today. From the port's statement, it would appear that deadline would need to be pushed back to sometime in late October or beyond. Now, there's still a couple unanswered questions. The San Diego City Council still needs to place the Citizens Initiative on the 2020 ballot. But there is a chance Mayor Faulconer could ask for a special election next year. He hasn't ruled out that option, but it would need council approval. Also, under the deal's original terms, the city would lose its $5 million down payment if an initiative didn't pass. It's unclear if that same clause is in this updated contract. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A new psychiatric treatment center for adults with severe mental illness is opening today in San Diego. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy says it's part of the county's plan to boost services for a growing number of people suffering from mental illness.
The sprawling new locked-down campus overlooking City Heights features bedrooms, activity centers, comfort rooms, and peaceful sights and sounds. The 67 long-term psychiatric beds run by Crestwood Behavioral Health will serve critically mentally disabled people who are unable to make decisions or take care of themselves.
Wow, it sure is nice.
Like 40-year-old Jason Reynolds, a formerly homeless drug addict who has been under long-term psychiatric care for 2 years. He currently lives at an older facility next door.
He's giving me encouragement to do better with my life instead of being a bum.
He'll be moving into his brand new room this week. So will 44-year-old Victor De La Garza.
We have lounge chairs, like a beanbag, a big giant beanbag, and this is actually a comfort.
He says he's enjoyed becoming familiar with his new home. His favorite place is the Serenity Room.
Because it's not too big, not too crowded and stuff in here.
De La Garza says he's struggled for years with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. He says he's made a lot of progress.
I see other people that I can relate to and see other people that are worse off than I am, which helps me.
The new facility is being funded by the County of San Diego. Director of Behavioral Health Services, Alfredo Aguirre, says it will help alleviate pressure from the hospital system.
And right now, they're scattered throughout our hospital network waiting for a placement. So we have something around 50 individuals right now today that need a long-term care placement.
The average stay at the new psychiatric unit will be approximately 1 year. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
The largest new housing development proposed in North County comes up for vote before the San Diego County Board of Supervisors tomorrow. KPBS reporter Allison St. John says Newland Sierra would build more than 2,000 new homes to an area historically known for its wildlife and quiet retreat centers.
The wind blowing through these melodic chimes evokes the serenity and peace that the Golden Door Retreat Center and Spa is famous for. People pay handsomely for the chance to stay in this secluded spot.
It's a great place just to connect and rejuvenate and recharge and then move forward. What's really great about the Golden Door, it's in a place where it's just peaceful and tranquil.
Denise Price credits the place for helping her through a difficult life transition.
And just wellness of the mind.
She now represents the Golden Door in its battle to preserve the natural surroundings.
It's also surrounded by some sensitive habitat that if you look around the county, some of the most sensitive plants and animals are actually located just north of here.
This is not the only retreat center in this quiet valley. A more modest Zen meditation center has existed here for decades on a nearby lane.
So we are in front of the meditation hall of the Hidden Valley Zen Center, where we do our silent meditation.
But time may be running out for this rural corner of San Diego, hidden in the hills and valleys west of Interstate 15.
In addition to the road, also there will be construction noise and blasting. I understand they will blast off the tops of these mountains, and that's just totally unacceptable for a meditation center.
The Merriam Mountains, just north of the Golden Door, is the site of a proposed master plan development. The project, called Newland Sierra, would include 7 interconnected communities made up of 2,135 single-family and town homes, plus parks, trails, and a new town centre. These hills are made of granite, so construction would involve blasting to create housing sites and new roads.
Yeah, things to do.
Price says the project would generate thousands of new car trips a day, putting an end to the tranquility of the valley.
Some people might say this is the perfect place for a development. There's lots of space. San Diego needs more housing. Why not here?
Because it doesn't have the infrastructure to support it. We're talking about putting a city the size of Del Mar right behind that mountain. There's not a roadway system to support it. We don't have the resources, water or other infrastructure. The development that they propose should be happening in the urban centers where development has already occurred, where the transportation systems are that can support these projects.
Just 15 minutes drive south of here, near Cal State San Marcos, construction is underway on North City, a new mixed-use housing, education and retail development.
Not either or, but both.
Eric Bruvold, CEO of the San Diego North Economic Development Council, says North County has created 10,000 new jobs since the recession ended, and employers want to see more housing built for their employees.
So if we need more housing, why don't we build more housing like this here in the city?
Absolutely, and we need all of the above. So this is a really exciting project here in San Marcos, the North City project, that's building in a more dense and urban way. And I think we need to be aware that there's still a pretty robust demand for suburban family kinds of forms in North County, where people want a detached house with a yard to raise their kids and have a bigger family.
Bruvold estimates that 4,000 new jobs in the life sciences, telecommunications and defense industry cluster pay well enough to afford the single-family homes proposed in Newland Sierra.
These are reasonably well-paying middle-class jobs that can afford the kinds of housing that you'd see at Newland Sierra. I know it doesn't sound affordable, but houses in the $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 range are really important kinds of housing that we need in North County to cut down on the number of people that are making these hour and 15-minute long commutes.
Millions of dollars have been spent on community plans to preserve the land tucked between State Route 78 and Interstate 15. But millions more have been spent to convert it into housing. This is not the first time developers have come to San Diego County supervisors with proposals to build thousands of new homes. The last time, in 2009, the board narrowly rejected it. But the pressure to build more houses, even if it means abandoning years of community planning and environmental stewardship, could spell a different future for this quiet valley. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
San Diego County supervisors are scheduled to vote on Newland Sierra tomorrow. Today marks 40 years since one of the deadliest plane crashes in California history. 144 people died on this day in 1978 when PSA 182 crashed in North Park. This morning, members of the community gathered to remember.
On the morning of September 25th, 1978, this dark plume of smoke was seen for miles in San Diego.
With incidents like this, some things that are just forever burned into our memory bank like a hot branding iron.
40 years later to the day, people gather to recall the not-so-distant memory.
I still see and smell the cataclysm that was here. The smoldering ruins, the plane wreckage, a strange aroma of so many things burning together that should not have been, the sights that defied descriptions.
Pacific Southwest Airways Flight 182 from Sacramento to San Diego via Los Angeles carried 135 passengers. The crew was preparing to land at San Diego's Lindbergh Field when it collided midair with a Cessna carrying 2 passengers.
I was loading a cargo onto the cart, and I don't know why, but I looked up in the sky and I saw it right after it was hit by the Cessna. I saw this plane on fire, and at the time I didn't think it was ours because the fire was on the wing, and it didn't dawn on me that's where the fuel is, but the engines were in the back, 3 engines, and that's what I was looking for. And I didn't think it was ours for just a split second, and then I remembered the fuel is in the wing.
It kind of got me going.
San Diego historian Alexander Bevel has wrote extensively about this deadly crash. He says 37 of the PSA passengers were PSA employees, colleagues of Scott Hitchcock.
And just the fact that I touched these people and talked to these people and reached out, and they were my colleagues, just exasperated the whole thing for me.
There were no survivors from either aircraft, and 7 people were killed on the ground.
There was a loud boom, and something hit the roof, which ended up being part of the Cessna. We all ran outside and continued to see the plane, the 182, going down towards my neighborhood.
Lisa Mason remembers what she saw after leaving her middle school and reaching her North Park neighborhood.
It was chaos, smoke, just madness. It was terrifying to see everything. A lot of people laying on the ground.
Flight 182 crashed nose first near Dwight and Now streets. People there that morning describe a surreal movie-like scene.
Flames were still engulfing the entire area, but a young woman came up to me and she was crying hysterically, and I asked her if she'd been injured. She said no, but I was talking to my mom on the phone and the phone went dead. I said, well, where does your mom live? And at that time, we both looked across the street, and the house was totally gone.
The memorial service concluded with the readings of each of the names of the 144 people who lost their lives.
Ronald Henry Berkeley, Manhattan Beach.
Several people here knew and loved these people.
Arnold Lee Califf, Poway.
And are actively pushing for a physical memorial to be permanently placed at this site.
Joseph Reed Canavan, Andover, Massachusetts.
That is forever etched in their memories.
Hood Cheney, Dallas, Texas.
Another memorial is planned for tonight at Grossmont College. That's where they'll screen the documentary of the crash, Return to Dwight and Now.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump uses sharp language to criticize a woman accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Tonight is opening night of the GI Film Festival, sponsored by KPBS. And KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh joins us from outside the Museum of Photographic Arts in Balboa Park. And Steve, I hear you had a chance to interview one of the stars.
I did indeed, Ebony. We were able to interview George Takei. Of course, we know him. He was Mr. Sulu on Star Trek. He's all over social media. But he's also the star of the film Americans, which is part of the opening block for the GI Film Festival out here at Balboa Park. This night is dedicated solely to Japanese Americans, and these films in particular are dedicated to Japanese Americans who fought during World War II. But first, I want to play that interview we did. Now, we know George Takei from film and the like, but as a 5-year-old, he was in a Japanese internment camp. Let's show the film.
I was a child when we were incarcerated, and I became very curious about our incarceration as a teenager. And I had many after-dinner conversations with my father, and I learned about the internment. But also, I learned about American democracy from my father, the man in our family who suffered the most, and yet he was able to explain to me what American democracy is all about. We were Americans who had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor, but this country was swept up by war hysteria and racism. We happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. We were at war with Germany and Italy as well, but there are too many German Americans and Italian Americans, and they look like the rest of America. We look different, and so we were incarcerated. And so they came down with a loyalty questionnaire. Can you imagine demanding their loyalty after you have impoverished them and imprisoned them for a year? And the most offensive question in that loyalty questionnaire was one sentence that read, "Will you swear your loyalty to the United States of America and forswear your loyalty to the Emperor of Japan?" We're Americans. We didn't have a loyalty to the Emperor. And for the government to assume that we had an inborn racial loyalty was offensive.
And that's actor George Takei, who is going to be here tonight along with the film's director. But that's only one of the films that's being shown tonight here at Balboa Park. We have the directors of the other film, which is a documentary called The Registry, which is a look at a Japanese American intelligence unit during World War II. And I've got the two filmmakers here. They're cousins, actually. We've got Bill Kubota and Steve Ozoni. So, gentlemen, where did you get the idea for this film?
Well, Steve could tell it better. He's from Minneapolis, which was the home of the Registry, which is a list of a bunch of guys who were in the special unit. And it was the home of the school where they learned how to speak Japanese, believe it or not. Japanese Americans that had to learn how to speak Japanese so they could go fight in the war against the Japanese.
So, Steve, where did this idea come from?
Well, Bill found out
about a gentleman. He was a veteran of the Military Intelligence Service, and he lives in Burnsville, Minnesota. And he had been putting together a registry, an Excel sheet of all the students that attended the school. And so that's how it came to be.
But there was a problem with that list. The list was not complete. This man who was putting together the list could not figure out who the actual guys who were in this unit, because it only had the first initial of the first name and their last name, and that could have been anybody. So his job was to figure out actually who served in this actual unit during the war, because a lot of people wanted to know.
And it became a labor of love for them, the folks that were working on the registry, and it was also a race against time, because there are very few survivors of this unit. This is World War II. There are very few survivors at this point. Steve, there are people in this film tonight who didn't survive until the premiere, correct?
Yeah, right. There were 4 people that passed away during the time that we have made this. It's been a period of 7 years.
Yeah, we caught up to these guys when they were in their early to mid-90s, and we figured we better get to them before they're gone, and we did.
It can be very difficult to work with people in their 90s, especially these guys from World War II. How did you get them to open up the way you did?
We bothered them until they got sick of us. Seiki, who is the star of the show, we probably visited him 4 times, and then I saw him myself personally another 4 or 5 times. And so finally, our last interview, he and his wife said, "We don't want to see you again until the film's done. We're sick of you."
There you go. So these are the film. The film is The Registry. That's playing tonight. This is day 1 of the GI Film Festival. It's going to be in Balboa Park at the Museum of Photographic Arts and through Friday, and then it switches over to the Hazard Center. There are 34 films in this block, and this is the 4th year for the GI Film Festival. So reporting from Balboa Park, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thanks, Steve. California is demanding the Trump administration abandon its proposal to overhaul the Endangered Species Act. The proposed changes include ending automatic protections for threatened species and limiting some habitat safeguards. But the government denies the plan would gut the statute that's been in place since 1973. In a statement, State Attorney General Javier Becerra said the proposal would bring some species closer to extinction and is regressive and short-sighted. 9 other states are also pushing back and sent a joint letter to the Secretaries of Commerce and the Interior. San Diego saw sunny skies this afternoon, but the day started out with a thick layer of clouds in some parts of the county. This was the view from San Diego Bay downtown. A nice day for fishing, apparently. Erin Calandra has your forecast.
Hopefully you had a great day today. The weather is pretty nice. Taking a look at the satellite radar, not much going on across San Diego County. And the big picture, it's quiet. We did have a couple of clouds in the morning along the coast, as we typically do, and then plenty of sunshine. Tonight, quiet. Along the coast, those clouds, Oceanside 61, Borrego Springs 71 and clear, Mount Laguna in the 50s. Tonight in the metro, 66 for that low temperature. Now we do have a high pressure system in place. It's going to keep it dry and warm, especially those interior areas. For example, Ramona should be around 80 for the typical high this time of year, but we're going to see 92 tomorrow. El Cajon around 90, Oceanside pleasant at 76, and also San Diego right around 76. Borrego Springs is still well into the 100s. Now late this week, it's looking pretty good. We're going to stay dry and warm, but we are watching a tropical storm named Rosa. It's right off the coast of Mexico right now. Winds around 45 miles per hour. We do expect Rosa to strengthen into a hurricane as it pushes off toward the west. Now, it's too early to tell what exactly Rosa might do, but we could see a little bit of rain next week because of this system. So you might see a couple of showers pushing through, but again, it's too early to tell what's really going to happen, but we'll keep our eye on that. So on Wednesday, 76 degrees. Thursday, a little bit warmer, and then back down to those mid-70s with plenty of sunshine. Inland, expect to see temperatures reaching 92 on Thursday, the hottest day of the week, and then back to the 80s, closer to average. And in the mountains, we're in the 70s, very pleasant. If you need to escape to get some cooler, refreshing air, that's the place to go. And in the deserts, it's hot. By Saturday and Sunday, though, look at that. Temperatures are dropping Sunday down to 95. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
The replacement for the Chargers football in San Diego is unveiling its name and team colors.
Firepower, teamwork, ingenuity.
Welcome the San Diego Fleet. The team is part of the new Alliance of American Football League, or AAF. The Fleet will play at SDCCU Stadium next year, donning yellow and gray colors. The AAF says it's not here to compete with the NFL and will feature players from local colleges. Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, California's farmers are struggling to find workers, the machines that could help with the harvest. And on Midday Edition, scam calls that mimic your area code, the technology aimed at blocking neighborhood spoofing. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.